Time to abandon ship.
Oh no!
Here we go!
Can I persuade you to join us for a drink? It's a tradition.
Here, here.
Jar Jar, homie, my main man, quickly. Before the Separatists attack, get into the escape pod.
Hey! This is escape, then we're the pod.
Hey, and welcome back to Star Wars Escape Pod. I'm your host, Josh, and today I have a new co-host joining us. His name is Diego. Diego's been a friend of mine for about 20 years at this point, so it's been a long time that I've known him, and he's never watched the Clone Wars before. So him and I are going to be going through Star Wars The Clone Wars in chronological order starting today, and we're going to be starting with the top 3 things on the list. That would be Cat and Mouse, Hidden Enemy, and the theatrical 2008 release that kickstarted the show. And that was the only thing that he actually watched, was the 2008 release. So I'm looking forward to having him just see the show as a whole. I recently convinced him to do this because when he first saw that 2008 release, he wasn't too impressed and never bothered watching the show, sadly. So he never got to see the end result, and I recently convinced him to do it. So he's agreed to do so and join us on the Escape Pod to chat about it and speculate and discuss. So thank you, Diego, for for joining us on that, and I'm looking forward to having him join us for many episodes going forward as we go down the list in chronological order, just talking about all the episode arcs as they go by. So today we're watching Cat and Mouse, Hidden Enemy, and the theatrical release, and that's about it. So let's get down and meet Diego and chat about those episodes.
Another happy landing.
How you doing?
You're not bad yourself. How you doing?
Not too bad, thank you. So
Awesome.
yeah, thanks for grabbing us a table.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, our listener, the audience is not really, I guess the crew, I should call them, of the Escape Pod have not had the pleasure of meeting you before. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. Well, for starters, my name's Diego, a good friend of Josh for a long time. Also a big Star Wars fan and joining in on the podcast. And yeah.
All right. What did you start with?
For me, I started with the originals. So 4, 5, 6, and then I watched the prequels. But like when I started, it was very I was very biased in my opinion, because when I first started, I saw the originals and I thought, oh wow, these are great. And then I watched the prequels, and initially I was like, yeah, these are awesome, but they're not the same. But then they kind of grew on me, and now where I stand is like the 6 under Lucas is like the bee's knees for me.
Yeah.
As far as Star Wars goes.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, we've known each other a long time.
Yeah, we have.
I mean, it was around, it was 2001.
Yeah, so almost 20 years.
Yeah.
So that's a long time.
Yeah, it's a pretty long time.
Yeah.
Well, we bonded over the release of episode 3. Like
Yes.
that was the biggest thing at the time. Like,
Yeah.
when episode 3 came out, there was the books, there was so much Lego coming out.
Yeah.
It was the first year that they did the replica lightsabers.
Yeah.
Like, there was a lot of Star Wars going on.
Yeah, I remember when that movie came out, we both had our Anakin episode 3 replica lightsabers, and we used to duel with them, and
Oh yeah. Backyard videos.
And then over 12 years later or something like that, and now we have we still have lightsabers, but both ours are completely like trashed.
Yeah.
So now we have
We have the Master Sabers. We got the ones for pros, the dueling sabers.
we have actual sabers now, and we still duel, and we still make videos and stuff. So
Ultra sabers for the win.
Ultra sabers for the win. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I remember at my 13th birthday party, or 12th, it was either 12th or 13th birthday, it was one of the two.
Yeah.
We had gone to the opening weekend of Star Wars The Clone Wars, the theatrical release, I guess. and you were not the biggest fan.
No, I hated it.
Yeah,
I hated it. Like I'll be like
Yeah.
I won't even shy away from it, man. Like back then, like I was not down with like an animated Star Wars. Like
yeah, which is fair.
Yeah.
Well, but you did like the game that was based on the 2D Star Wars Clone Wars. There was that Cartoon Network site which had the 2D Star Wars Clone Wars dueling game. And I forget what it's called now, but it's been cached. And if you look online for website caches, you can find like a record of them, but they're almost like referenced nowhere today.
was it the one where you play as Kit Fisto and
Yeah,
you're in the water?
You had Ventress
yeah,
and Kit Fisto.
yeah. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I was addicted to that game. Like
Yeah.
yeah. I remember.
Yeah,
that.
so that was the 2D Clone Wars micro series is what they're called these days. So that's not canon anymore. That's expanded universe Star Wars Legends material. But it was that kind of inspired the creation for the 3D show. So when we went and saw the 3D show that we came out of that movie, I think you and I both thought that there wasn't that was it. Like that was supposed to be the whole like between episodes 2 and 3. Like I had no idea back then that there was supposed to be a TV show that followed that movie. Like, did you know about that?
I had no idea, man.
Yeah. Okay.
Like,
yeah. So I guess the news just hadn't reached our ears yet. You know?
Yeah.
But it was actually Luke that filled me in about that. He said like, oh no, there's going to be an animated show premiering on CTV, which is what we had here in Canada, or Cartoon Network if you had that on a package or whatever.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Like, so there's going to be a TV show that follows up the animated film. And it wasn't until, like later on when it premiered on CTV, at least here in BC, that I started watching the show. And I was like, oh yeah, there's like way more to the story. And after a few episodes, they actually stopped showing it on CTV. And I think it became like a Cartoon Network exclusive. But did you ever watch the show when it was on?
No, I'm not when it was like actually on air, but the few episodes I've seen would have been with you.
Yeah.
So like as far as the Clone Wars the show goes, like I haven't seen it.
I've shown you some clips here and there, but not like full episodes.
Yeah, like nothing. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Nothing past a 5-minute clip.
Well, what are we gonna do today?
We're gonna watch some Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Full
Okay,
episodes.
we're gonna go through chronologically, top to bottom, over like however long it takes us to do it. But I guess one of the reasons why I think you're good with it now is because you're aware of the fact that this is one of the last things that George Lucas ever did with Star Wars.
Yes.
So what you want to do is explore his last stories to the franchise before the Disney era of Star Wars.
Yeah, before Disney took over. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I was saying, like back then, like I remember coming out of the movie theater, like I hated it. But now, since it's like the last touch really that Lucas had with Star Wars, like it that's what's keeping me interested. And I'm much more open to it now versus a 13-year-old version of me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm ready.
All right,
let's do
cool.
this.
All right. Okay, so we just watched chronologically, episode 1, Cat and Mouse. And then we watched episode 2, Hidden Enemy. And in Cat and Mouse, Anakin has to act as delivery boy to use this prototype shuttle, which has a cloak device on it. And the ship just, appears invisible to the naked eye. And he has to take supplies down to Christophesis, where Bail Organa has set up almost like a refugee, almost like an aid center, almost. Yeah, not for refugees. It's more like he does have like a military outpost there, but it's more just like Anakin is providing relief aid to Bail Organa and the troops there, and also for people in the city, because there's like a city of people that like this war is happening around, and there's a blockade around Christophesis and all that. So Yeah, it's been like 10 years since you watched the movie that launched the show.
Yeah.
So what did you think after just watching that initial episode, Cat and Mouse?
I think that like 10 or so years after, like definitely a different point of view. Like for me, I remember coming out of that movie, I hated it. You know, I did not like it. But with watching this and knowingly that, okay, this is, you know, Lucas's last like hurrah kind of thing, and then you kind of compare it to Disney. For me, it's like, okay, I can totally get behind it because I just in the few episodes you can see, okay, this is really, you know, his last touch. You can really sense, okay, this, you know, Lucas was very involved in this, and it has that Lucas touch that we talked about. And
yeah,
I think 10 years after, for definitely like more of an open mind, and yeah, definitely like it.
Yeah. It's a hard one to kind of like, I don't know. It's a hard thing to kind of place when you haven't seen the show before, and now you're going back into it, and well, if you haven't seen the show before and you're jumping in for the first time, and it's like, oh, this show is not what I expected it to be. Like there's so much hype for this. Like, you know, what the heck is this kind of thing, right?
Right.
It doesn't exactly start off strong. Like there's a lot of cool, like deep Lucas references in the show, but at least to begin with, and you can kind of see his style of storytelling there, but you can't really get into it from the get-go. Like most TV shows, it's hard to just like get on board from the beginning, right?
It has to build up.
Yeah, for sure. Unless it's like a masterfully done series, like you know, like Game of Thrones with the boys or whatever, right? Something that
Breaking Bad or something.
Yeah, something that like from the get go is just like, okay, like
you're hooked in. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's definitely not a show like that. It's a show that takes a bit to get going, but once it gets going, it's like, hey, this is really something good, and that's something I'm looking forward to you to like experiencing. But
definitely.
But you know, from like a perspective of somebody who has seen the show before in that theatrical release version on the big screen, and then, you know, didn't like it at all, and because you love the live action movies, and then it's like you see this cartoon, it's like, what the heck is this? Like, you know, this is Star Wars on cartoon, like not for me. You know, it's a hard one to place at first, but aside from the 2D Clone Wars series, which you had before, which is called the micro series, which is like expanded universe stuff, you know, in canon, like this new 3D animated show was like kind of a first for a lot of people to see Star Wars in animation, because I think the last time they had an animated show for Star Wars was back in the 80s. I think it was like the Ewoks like cartoon or whatever, and they had the Droids cartoon. I don't know. Have you seen like toys or comics about that?
I've seen like snippets of both, but like not like really gone into it kind of thing.
Yeah, it was I don't know how long it lived for. Maybe like a couple of years. It was like 3 years or something like that. But you know, it wasn't overly popular. But you know, if you walk into an antique store, sometimes you get, you know, the kids' books or something on the shelf, like dusty, and you know, nobody cares about that stuff anymore. It's kind of like the holiday special, but even less known.
Yeah.
So yeah, I never actually watched those myself, but yeah, this like I don't know if you like noticed, but there's like a very high amount of effects and models and everything. Like it's a very high budget show.
Definitely.
Yeah. Could you like feel that now, like watching it, like 10 years later since the, or 11 years later now since the first time you saw the Clone Wars on the big screen? Like can you kind of like, what kind of new appreciation do you have for it?
I can definitely see that it wasn't like a, you know, like it's obviously not low budget, but you can see that there was a lot of time and effort put into it, and very much so, like as far as like effects and animation goes, like it's pretty high dollar, like and this is 11 years ago, right? So pretty good then. Imagine if they were doing something with it nowadays, like how much better it could potentially be. This is really good as it was back then, but I can only imagine what they could do nowadays. It's just sad that Disney has taken over, and they're, you know, that's a different discussion.
You're not a fan of Disney?
No.
Well, I don't know if you heard last week's episode, but I actually recorded a little thing about Bob Iger's book that he wrote recently. He kind of unveiled about, well, not unveiled, it was out there before the news, but he talked about George's disappointment with the sequel trilogy and the plans going forward and stuff, and how he was hurt about he felt betrayed almost when he sold the company, and I have a whole thing about that where I explained it's fair to say that he's been hurt. I don't think it's fair that to say that he was betrayed, because he did sell the company.
Yeah,
and,
it's not his anymore.
Yeah, it's not his anymore, and that's the thing. Like George wasn't gonna sell the company, unless the buyer was free to do with the what they wanted with the license. Like you don't buy someone's. I use this analogy in the episode, but you don't buy someone's car with them saying like, okay, cool, thanks for the money. Now you can only drive it to the store and you can only drive it to work. Have fun, at least for like the next 3 years, and then you're good to go.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that's just what it's like to say. So it's like it's totally fair to say that Disney was in the right mind of doing what they wanted with what they bought, but they went about it really weird. They went about it very, very badly. Like they didn't inform George before the meeting that happened that explained what they were going to do with episode 7 through 9, and or at least through episode 7. And then in the meeting, like George was like, hey, these are none of my ideas. Like, what the heck is going on here? Like, I just wrote treatments for episode 7, 8, 9 and sold them with the company, to Disney. Yeah. And now here we are, with what we got, which is The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. Yeah. And I don't know. Like, I don't like to say I told you so to I guess all the fans who at the time, put a lot of discrepancy on George Lucas and thought it was the best thing that Disney went forward with moving away from his ideas, because it was news back then when they let go of Michael Arndt as a writer on The Force Awakens and just in general, I think things that George revealed in interviews, like it was news back then that they were moving away from George's ideas. So yeah, it's just one of those things, But anyway, I love George Lucas, and it's like I know a lot of fans out there like love The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. It's not that I hate those movies; it just
I do. I hate them.
You don't like them.
I don't like them.
You don't like them. Like it's Star Wars to me, and whatever Star Wars is, as Star Wars goes, like it's just I just accept it.
Yeah, it's
I just it hurts me more to think that I've just missed out on George's versions of those stories.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have seen those. Like I would have loved to have seen those. And I think that's what really bothers me. It's not that The Last Jedi and The Force Awakens are bad movies. It's just like they're quite well made movies. It's just I just don't connect with them very well. And I don't think that they connect with the existing saga very well.
No.
So
and having said that, I mean, like, I definitely like George's 6 like much better than the sequels, like any day. Like, but having said that, like as much as I have disliked both movies, I have to say not so much for episode 7, but I'd say for The Last Jedi, like there were moments that it was kind of like threw me off guard. Like, for example, when you see Yoda in there, that was totally like out of left field for me. I was like, whoa.
Really?
Yeah.
You didn't
I did not expect that.
Oh, no, that's the kind of thing though that I expect from the sequels. That's the kind of thing that I'm like, okay, we need more of that, Like,
yeah, and I agree. But the thing is that when I saw that in theaters, it took me off guard, because I was thinking the whole time as I'm watching episode 8, I'm like, okay, episode 7, it sucked, blah, blah, blah. And then Yoda comes out of nowhere. I'm like, okay, I was not expecting that. I could get behind that. And then, showing Kylo Ren's, infancy and like just him as a teenager and like learning the Force and blah, blah, blah. But little snippets like that, I could appreciate in the movie. But as a whole, for both of those, I can't get behind them. Because like you said, if George was still involved now, like I think they'd be totally different. Of course, you'll have either way. If it were still Disney making them or Lucas making them, you'd still have people saying, "Oh, I love it. Oh, I hate it." So either way, you can't satisfy everybody, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah,
I'm more or less scared for episode 9, overexcited because I just want them to do something that doesn't completely make the prophecy of the chosen one irrelevant.
Yeah,
like that to me is a very important part of the Skywalker saga because it is the story of Anakin and then Darth Vader and then his son Luke Skywalker, and the last 2 films have just felt very disconnected from that. Like I know Ben Solo is technically the grandson, but it's just a bit of a different story when you're talking about he doesn't even have the Skywalker name.
No.
and like, not to say that that's like, oh, but he's still a Skywalker bloodline. Like, of course he is. It's just, it's just through Leia, who never even wielded a lightsaber in her life, never really even used the Force. Like, we don't really have that direct lineage connection. No. It really feels like, oh yeah, it's like Ben Solo's uncle was Luke Skywalker, and then that's where the relationship kind of like chain begins, and it's like it would have been really cool to see just a more direct lineage going on. And not to like diss the character of Kylo Ren, I've actually I've grown more fond of him as I've seen more of the content come by. When The Force Awakens came out, I wasn't a huge fan of the character, and since The Last Jedi added a lot to his character, and that's one thing I think the film did really well, is it added a lot to the character of Ben Solo and to his like inner struggle, and now I find him quite fascinating. It's a character that isn't just a fanboy of Darth Vader. He's a character of his own that really wants to hone in on what he's able to prove. And he killed Snoke, so that was kind of cool. Like,
I mean, he killed his father.
Like,
so
he killed Han Solo. A lot of people are still bitter about that. And I don't care. Like, it's not that I wasn't a huge fan of Han Solo. Like, I love Han Solo, but like it's just. It served the story pretty well, I think.
I mean, Harrison Ford didn't like Han Solo.
No, Harrison Ford didn't like Han Solo.
He didn't want to play him.
Han Solo didn't like Han Solo.
Exactly. So there you go, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, like, I think like with episode 9 coming, in December, I like for Disney to really, in my eyes, to like bring me back into like I like Star Wars. They did it with this movie, all that. Somebody's got to die. Like, I want to see like stuff that happened in the original 6. I want to see that stuff. I want to see someone lose a limb. I want to see an important character die. I want to see stuff like that. So if it doesn't happen, it's like, okay, yeah, it's Disney, but I mean, they're calling it Rise of Skywalker, so it's got to be, that's quite a name to live up to.
Oh, man.
But yeah, they gotta make it happen. But we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah. All right. Well, it's super easy to get off topic here with the episode 9 around the corner. But okay. So back to Clone Wars. So you enjoyed the 2 episodes, right?
Yes.
Yeah. What did you think of? I mean, in the first episode, immediately we're introduced to Bail Organa, Anakin Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Commander Cody. And Admiral Yularen, who's actually later on he's in episode 4, A New Hope. He's actually one of the Imperial officers around the table when Darth Vader comes into the room and chokes that officer down to to the point of Tarkin saying, "Oh, Vader, release him,"
Yeah.
And so he's around that table. He's one of the white suited officers, which is kind of cool because it's like, oh, hey, like here's a young Admiral Yularen working for the Republic as as an admiral, and Anakin Skywalker is pulling in one of the first jobs as I guess a general in the sense. So there's a bit of a gap between episode 2 and 3. So the last that we saw these characters was episode 2, which was Anakin and Padme get married on Naboo in secret, and the clone army is now getting deployed across the galaxy and all that. So I think at this point a couple of months has gone by, I believe, maybe like 3 or 4 months or something, and Anakin's hair is starting to grow out a little longer. So
definitely closer to episode 3's timeline, but still
it's
still
getting
in
there.
between.
It's getting there because the war is supposed to be. I think what I at least what I've read is that the war is supposed to be around 3 years long.
Mm-hmm.
So there's about a 3-year gap between episodes 2 and 3, which means that the Clone Wars must be like it must start off maybe like 4 to 6 months after episode 2, I would imagine. And in that time period, characters like General Grievous and Asajj Ventress, they've all kind of come into play in that gap. So the Clone Wars really kind of like all the other episodes throughout the saga kind of jump in the middle of the action without any direct follow-up from the last film. I think the only time we see that direct follow-up is The Last Jedi and The Force Awakens. That's the only time we ever get a direct follow-up from like the beginning of or the end of one thing and the beginning of another.
Right.
Aside from this show, which now goes episodically, then we will be, continuing the story like as we go along. But yeah, as far as like a time jump goes, it's pretty common to have that gap. So it's about 6 months after episode 2, and all these characters are now out there and everything. And then there's that what was his name? Admiral Trench, or something. That he's a Seppi admiral that's supposed to be some big shot guy, which Anakin decides very in character to ignore the delivery run and take out Admiral Trench in this experimental prototype ship.
Yeah.
So it's super. He's a really witty character, Anakin, which is something that I think they improved on in the show over the films. In the films they have him very. It's very in character of him to be very kind of witty, because as Darth Vader, he's woody. It's not the robotic limbs and breathing mask that makes him like that. It's just his personality, right? Mm-hmm. And that's something that stays with you no matter what kind of suit you're in.
Yeah.
And so I think Hayden Christensen played the character perfectly, but for a show for what it is, like for a TV show that's got to be relatively upbeat and kind of entertaining, like Matt Lanter, who plays the voice of Anakin Skywalker, does such a great job. Yeah, he does an amazing balance between a Hayden and his own kind of Anakin, and at times you'll hear lines that he says which are very similar to what Hayden's Anakin says, and yet it's a little different, but it's just you get used to it very quickly. Very, very quickly. But that's something that when I first watched it, they kind of took me out of it a little bit, because he sounded totally different. Did that kind of phase you at all?
Definitely, because watching the first couple episodes, I'm thinking I put my mindset to okay, this is the Clone Wars. This is sometime between episode 2 and 3. Coming into episode 3. Okay, these are the voices in my head that they're memorized, and I'm expecting this. Obi-Wan, surprisingly enough, I didn't know, but that is not his actual character from the movies, but it was close enough, it got me. Now, when I hear Anakin, I think, okay, this obviously isn't Hayden, and but definitely it did throw me off at first, but with a couple episodes in, like you said, you do get used to it, and it's something you can very easily adapt to.
Yeah.
But initially definitely oh, okay, I was not expecting these voices, but yeah, not a big deal. Definitely easy to get past for sure.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that's good. That's good. Yeah. It was. What did you think of Bale's line when he said, "General Kenobi, you are our only hope," and then the hologram disappears?
Instantly. Princess Leia, episode 4, A New Hope, definitely jump back, and it's okay, Lucas.
It's so good, right?
Yeah, it's so good.
It's so good that chronologically this first episode really brings back that first kind of call for help that starts everything. Yeah. It starts the whole story is that this, at least in release order, this starts the whole story. And here we are, I guess 1977, 88, 98, 30 years later, and we're hearing on the big screen, on our small screen at TV at home for the first time. We're hearing about Bail Organa, Leia's dad or adoptive father, requesting General Kenobi for help, and it's really kind of cool. Just this really interesting sense of symmetry going on
It's cool to give it that
between the
throwback.
films and the show. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a really good callback. I think it was a really wise choice to have Bail Organa the one to call for help at the beginning of the show, and and Kenobi sends his Padawan. He sends Anakin, who's I guess he's no longer his Padawan, so to say. He's more or less his own. He's got his own thing going on now, Anakin. I think he's got his own gig. He's got his own status at this point.
Yeah.
As a general, but he still has that respect for Kenobi as his master. Obi-Wan's always going to be his master.
Yeah.
And even in Revenge of the Sith, he still calls him his master. It's almost like an old teacher of yours. You'll still call them Mr. So-and-so or Mrs. So-and-so because you called them that way through school. It's similar to that, but in I guess the Jedi Order, everyone has their place, right? So I just thought it was cool to see that Bail Organa was the one that really got me going when I first saw that. And then Commander Cody as well. You see him show up, and who I guess if you just watch the 6 movies, the last thing you probably think of Commander Cody is, oh, he's the clone that helped kill Obi-Wan Kenobi, sort of, or I guess gave the order to fire a cannon on him. It's also cool to see that he's hanging around there, just being a part of Obi-Wan's life. And I guess it kind of as you think, it's Commander Cody's been Obi-Wan's clone for a good long while at this point, which makes the betrayal later on all the more devastating to see that at the flip of a switch, almost, that he was able to turn his back on Obi-Wan Kenobi. What do you think of that? Because that answer is later on revealed in the show. They give a reason for Order 66 and everything in the Clone Wars, but you haven't seen the later part of the show, so I just want to hear what you have to speculate on that.
I mean, as it sits right now, I would probably I want to see what all the events leading up to Order 66, but definitely interesting to see that kind of character development from both of them, Kenobi and Commander Cody. But it's tough to say for me because I've only just started the show, so I'm only just starting to get to know at least Commander Cody in a more in-depth way. So as the show progresses and as we progress in the show, I'll definitely have a better answer. But as it's right now, I can't really answer that question.
Okay.
You know
All
what
right.
I mean? Yeah.
Okay, so Anakin, he eventually gets the supplies to the surface and all that. Everything's good. So the second episode continues on Christophsis. The Republic has broken past the blockade, and they have now, I guess, set up shop on Christophsis, fighting the Separatists on the ground. And it starts off with them on those buildings, right? And they're about to perform a surprise attack on the droids marching through the city streets. And then it turns out that they're aware of the plan. They, something weird happens, and all the clones freak out because the droids are now, shooting at them from behind and everything. And it turns out that there's a traitor amongst the clones.
Oh yeah, and they get.
So it's later revealed that Asajj Ventress, is hired, or I guess asked this one clone sergeant to Slick. Is his name? He gets him to kind of sabotage all the Republic weaponry. Yeah. So they only have their heavy guns by the end of the episode.
Yeah, because I believe they destroyed their weapons, and then they get what's the word? They get ambushed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They get ambushed, and they steal that tactical droid head on the rooftop of that building, and then they're able to figure out, it's oh, hey, they knew about our plan. And there's that moment through the episode where Commander Cody and Captain Rex, which we now meet at this point, which is Anakin's captain.
Yeah.
We see R2 as well, and they're trying to figure out who the clone is that betrays the Republic, and then Anakin and Obi-Wan go off searching for the Separatist headquarters to do what they got to do, and they run into Ventress, and now we see the first lightsaber duel of the show. What did you think of the lightsaber duel?
I think it was good. Like I don't know, but I'm willing to assume that the other lightsaber duels in the show are probably better. But as like a Kickstarter for the show, like I'd say it was good little teaser.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the rest, I feel safe in saying that they're probably going to be some pretty epic lightsaber duels.
Yeah.
In the show. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, what do you think overall of the second episode? Just like that whole thing.
Good.
Anything
Good.
bother you about it?
No. I mean, it's too early to say, hey, I don't like this, I don't like that. But like, I like how it's laid out so far, and I'm very curious, very interested to see the development of all these characters and the introduction of maybe not necessarily new characters, but like Ahsoka Tano. I know she's coming in, maybe not just yet, but it'll be interesting to see all these characters develop and how the story kind of ties in and really ties the knot between really episodes 2 to 3, and then kind of why Order 66 happened, and then kind of how things played out from there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
People are counting on us. The galaxy is counting on us. Solo, we'll figure it out. We'll use the Force. That's not how the Force works.
We just watched Star Wars: The Clone Wars, the theatrical film now, and it is the third and final part to the Christophsis story arc, and then goes on into a new plot of the Jedi having to rescue Jabba's son and all that, and then in the end we find out Count Dooku has conspired against Jabba and stolen it to frame the Jedi against him, and eventually it all works out, and the Jedi, make a treaty with Jabba in the end to gain access to their space lanes so that the Republic can move through the Outer Rim. But anyway, this is the episode where we meet Ahsoka. Now, what? I know the first time that this is what you saw 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are your feelings on it compared to then?
Definitely like a different outlook on it. Like 10 years ago, I hated it, but now I like it. I thought it was a pretty good movie. It was like it wasn't like a super like I wouldn't say it was very like, a lot of the plot is kind of like revealed in the movie. But having said that, I think it's a good like kind of like, watch 2 episodes and then you watch this and then you continue with the show. I think it's a good placement for the movie. It had some funny parts, some typical Lucas humor, and Ahsoka Tano, the introduction of her, I don't know, she's like, I don't really like her I just find her annoying, but
yeah.
Having said that, like I've heard that she does get better in the show, so it'll be interesting to see that. But I know, as you've mentioned before, and others have mentioned that in the beginning, it's kind of tough.
Yeah.
For her
at the beginning of the show, you're like, what's going on?
Yeah, I know. It just is like she just rubs me the wrong way, and I like it, which is fine for now. But I do think I could see her as a character that could grow on someone. But I'd say like for now, she's kind of annoying.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. When I first saw the Clone Wars, I was so confused. I was like, what? This is all wrong. Like Anakin should not have an apprentice. Like I felt like Anakin does. Like what? Like what's going on here? Like it's like there's no way he's got an apprentice. In episode 3, he doesn't have an apprentice. Like this just can't happen.
Yeah.
And all is revealed in time.
Yeah.
But it's it's a rough start. Like, I must say, like, I gotta say, rewatching it again and again and again, I constantly think to myself how much of a rough start like it actually is for the show. It didn't do the any service towards the character of Ahsoka whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it really, like, did kind of damage her starting off reputation, just because she has so many cheesy lines through the whole film. And it's like, I totally agree. Like it's hard to kind of like take that and say like that you love the character, because not only do you have no pre-existing relationship with this character, but she also doesn't exactly serve the story in a way that impresses most people, because like, oh, Anakin shouldn't have a Padawan, like, it's just already you have a bitter taste in your mouth towards the character.
Yeah, exactly.
And now all of a sudden she's getting the cheesiest lines ever.
Yeah.
So there's three things working against her there, and it really doesn't help.
No.
But she does get better later on in the show. She actually becomes one of my favorite characters of all time. Through the whole Star Wars saga, she's actually one of my top picks.
Yeah.
We see a little more from Asajj Ventress.
Yeah.
We see her duel with Obi-Wan Kenobi and their little flirtatious relationship that they have in battle.
Yep.
Which is kind of messed up.
Yep.
And
see, that's a character that even though you don't see her at all in the live action films, like, I do think that the addition of Asajj Ventress in the live action films would have been amazing alongside Dooku and Palpatine.
Oh, yeah,
like,
for
I think
sure.
I think it would have been great to see. Like, she'd be a excellent addition, because I love her character, but I think we were kind of robbed, because I do enjoy her on screen, but on live action she would have been great. Be like maybe in episode 2, because it wouldn't really tie in together with episode 3, because we have Grievous.
yeah,
But
episode 3 is packed as it is.
Exactly. There's already so much going on in episode 3 as it is. But like, if they were to do like a episode 2.5 kind of thing, like this kind of deal, but in a live action film, like, she would be a top notch addition. Like, she's a very good character. I do enjoy her. I do enjoy her.
Yeah, for sure. What did the plot itself at face value is kind of weak, but if you think about it, towards the end, it kind of the way that they've set it up is you really only get a face value of the plot for like over 3/4 of the film, and then in the end, it's like, oh, this goes a lot deeper, and now it's kind of cool. So like, if you think about it, like, Dooku has collaborated with Zero the Hutt to kidnap Jabba's son. So not only will they frame the Jedi and gain access to Jabba's trade routes, but he's put Zero in the position of power within the Hutt clan as well, which they would conspire against Jabba as well afterwards, and therefore Zero would take over the Hutt clan, and now Dooku has Zero under his thumb. So not only would they gain access to those trade routes, but as a masterful plan, it works out brilliantly, because they would also have the Hutt clan under their thumb a little bit, because they've just done them a favor. So it actually, when I think about it in that sense, I'm like, oh wow, that's actually a really good plot. But when you just think about like the initial face value of like, oh, the Jedi have to rescue Jabba's son, it's like, it's a bit weak, It's a weak plot for a full length animated feature. I think they could have done better with a different plot line for the opening of the Clone Wars. But it works in the context of the rest of the show to a degree. It's something that I think most people, when they watch the show, they actually skip over when they do it in chronological order. They're like, oh yeah, I've seen that. Don't need to bother. But it is cool to see how it ties in with the previous 2 episodes on Christophsis and how it just flows in with, kickstarting a lot of the character storylines and everything. What did you think of the violence? Like, it's not a kids show, so to say, right?
No, like it's
like you see a couple times where someone's head gets blasted off, or there was a a few bullet blasts that go like through a clone trooper, and you see
Yeah.
the hole on the other end, and
Yeah, I wouldn't say like I'd say the violence is good. I wouldn't. It's definitely not bloody or anything like that.
Yeah.
No gore or anything, but
not yet.
not okay. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because in the live action films, like they're
Aside from episode 3, there really isn't any blood.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
what like episode 3.
We get a bit of tauntaun action in Empire Strikes Back, but aside from
Yeah,
that,
but losing a limb and no blood. Is
yeah,
just
there's
kinda-
no blood. It's
it just
because
it just looks burnt.
it's cauterized, right? Like
Yeah.
it's what's the word for that? Cauterized?
I think cauterized.
Cauterized? Yeah, something like
Something
that.
like that.
Yeah, whereas so there is no blood.
Yeah.
It's just the visual cue of seeing that kind of action.
Yeah, and I guess
Uh,
episode 4 when they're in the cantina and Obi-Wan cuts.
Oh yeah,
that
that's true.
guy's-
That's
that
true.
guy's
Yeah,
arm
yeah, yeah.
off,
We
right?
get that actually I think is the most blood that we get because you do
Yeah.
see a pool of it on the ground
Yeah,
next to the arm. So that's true.
but that's about it. Like I can't really think of. I mean, episode 2, but Anakin loses his limb, but again, same thing. It just looks burnt. There's no actual blood or anything.
Yeah, you don't really see anything.
No.
And his sleeve is kind of covering up a lot of the
Yeah.
the graphic part. But yeah, it's there was that one moment where Jabba sent in the beginning it's revealed that Jabba has sent bounty hunters to search for his son, which they find the Teth monastery, I'm assuming. And I'm assuming that Ventress takes care of these bounty hunters to cover up the fact that the Separatists have stolen his son. Because when the droid comes up to Jabba in his palace and says, "Your bounty hunters have returned," these two, I think it's two Nikto bodyguards or something, walk in with a stretcher carrying 4 heads. And you don't see any blood or anything, but it's like, oh man, like they just carried in 4 heads on a little,
Yeah.
stretcher for Java. So like it's definitely not that's not something that you see in a kid show a lot of the time.
No.
And it is animated, but it's like you do see decapitated heads, whether there's blood or not. They are heads.
Yeah.
and there's what else? I mean, there's Zero the Hutt smoking.
Yeah.
That's something that I don't think Disney would ever permit today's age to see on screen from either animated or live action.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something that they're trying to move away from, is just the the visual kind of smoking I guess influence for kids. I know that's something that they've openly stated that they're not promoting very at all. So for 2008 for Lucasfilm to go through with it, it's just it's so Star Wars though, to see like somebody smoking something,
Yeah.
and so it doesn't even faze me. But like I only just thought of that. It's like, oh wow, like if this show was done today, that wouldn't have been a thing.
No, that wouldn't fly for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
totally different story if you look at like Disney and like the 30s or whatever. Like totally different. Right?
Oh yeah, yeah, because
there's-
characters smoking all the time, like it was super normal.
Mickey Mouse, for example, or like so many, right?
Yeah, it was
just-
a comical relief thing too. Like
Yeah.
a lot of the characters would smoke and puff their face out, and it was just it added to some of the facial comedy, I guess, that they had through those old school cartoons, and Popeye,
Yeah.
all those kind of Tom and Jerry,
Yeah.
some
Looney
of the
Tunes.
Looney
is a big-
Tunes,
is a big
yeah.
one, yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of kid shows back then, and it's just it's very recent history that a lot of these companies have kind of started to move away from that influence for kid shows. But it just once again reaffirms it's like, hey, this is not a kid show. Like this is not just for kids, at least. It's like for all ages who enjoy Star Wars. Like the Clone Wars is for everybody. So
Yeah.
I appreciated that George again just wanted to tell a story, didn't care about some of the current modernized ways of showing that story on screen. Like
he showed it his way.
Yeah, he showed it his
wanted to
way.
do it,
Yeah. I don't know if that topic ever came up in the writing room or whatever, but it makes me appreciate the show to know that like, hey, it still feels grounded in that Star Wars universe that George Lucas created.
Definitely.
Yeah, whether this movie sucks or not, like it just feels like Star Wars to me.
Yeah.
It does feel like Star Wars, and it's like, and as we go along, we'll slowly start to appreciate, some of the characters that we hate. And
I'm definitely looking forward to seeing the character development of Ahsoka Tano, Anakin, definitely Obi-Wan, Count Dooku.
The Dooku fight. Okay, so this is now, I'm assuming in canon, this is the first fight at the end of the movie when Dooku fought Anakin. It's the first lightsaber fight that we've seen
since episode 2.
Since Anakin lost his arm.
Yeah.
And it's also on Anakin's home planet of Tatooine.
Yeah.
So he's got a very emotional attachment to this place that they're fighting on.
Yeah.
I mean, what did you think of that? Like just seeing, because there's that line in episode 3 where he says, "My powers have doubled since the last time we met, Count."
Yeah.
And
I've been looking forward to this.
I've been looking forward to this.
Yeah. It was cool to see. Like you definitely like, even if it's animated, you can definitely see like Anakin is troubled by his past, and every time he steps foot on Tatooine, he can see. He's kind of clouded, like it's interesting to see
he's struggling to put his past behind him.
Yeah, exactly. You can definitely see that even in this early on in the show, like you can definitely see like those little dark side moments, like I'd say pre-Vader, little parts of him come out. You can definitely see them. They become more and more evident, and of course in episode 3 it's kind of blows up, right? But it's interesting to see how early on they start coming out.
I really like that fight. Actually, it's a good fight.
Yeah,
I think it's the best fight of the whole movie.
Oh yeah,
is between Anakin and Dooku, and it's short. It's not. But I like it better than Obi-Wan's fight with Ventress.
Yeah.
That's another thing actually I want to bring up. The effects for the lightsabers and the interaction with their environment improves a lot over the show.
Oh yeah.
So when the characters move and jump around, I noticed that people have a problem with the animation style in this, but the models slowly improve over the course of the show, so they get more detailed, more textured, and whatever else. But
the actual
they've actually what I didn't notice before though, which I only just noticed today, was that the motion blur improves over the course of the show. So when the characters move around and they're really quick with the lightsabers, have you noticed that they don't really blur that much? Like they're kind of still, they're glowing, but they're kind of like almost like glowing toothpicks still.
Yeah, they don't really.
They look like stop motion in a way.
Yeah, they don't really show like the actual movement of the lightsaber.
Yeah.
Whereas like in the movies, like they swing it one way and you see the actual light come along.
Yeah,
with it.
it's a more accurate. It's a more accurate motion blur.
Yeah.
So that's something that does improve over the show. And when Ventress strikes the pillars behind Obi-Wan, did you notice that none of them cleave through the pillar? It just leaves like a textured black mark on the wall, but you don't see any cut.
Yeah.
Like you don't see any glowing line across where the lightsaber struck the pillar. You just see nothing. You see sparks. Yeah. And that's it. Like there's not really much else.
Whereas in the movies, for example, like I'm trying to think of an example, like episode 1 where Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan are on that ship and they cut a hole through that wall. You see how like when he cuts that circle, you see how where the lightsaber is cutting, and you see that like light, that scar. It's not like black. It's just you actually see where the physical cut.
Well, we saw that when Ventress cut through the door.
Oh yeah, that's right.
But when it's kind of like when in episode 3 when Anakin and Obi-Wan are dueling it out on Mustafar, when they're tearing up that inner command center on and you see so many scars when they're hitting the tables and the walls and the doors and everything. Like there's so many lightsaber scars from their battle. Yeah. And like when you see that in this show, like it doesn't leave any marks behind. It's just sometimes you get the odd texture and some spark effects, but that's it. but that is something that they do improve on over the course of the show as well.
To make it more
Realistic. Yeah. So that a lot of that stuff does get better, and it really like it's amazing how subtle of a change it is, but it really improves like the visual aspect of that show.
Right.
And it just connects with you a little better because you can get more kind of inground with it. You think of it less like a video game and more of like a real, intense moment.
They probably try and make it more like like you're actually watching the movie, but in a show context.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Thank you so much for swinging by the Escape Pod, Diego. It's been awesome to have you and meeting you up in the cantina and hanging out in the pod and whatnot. So thanks so much for popping by and starting Star Wars The Clone Wars with me in chronological order. I'm very much looking forward to the next items on the list. And for those of you who want to follow us along at home and watch the same episodes before or after listening to our review and speculation, we're using the StarWars.com source online. If you just Google search Star Wars The Clone Wars chronological order, there's a blog post that StarWars.com did a couple years ago, and they've been updating it as new Clone Wars material has been released. There's also swtimeline.blogspot.com. That's also a great source for anything Star Wars in chronological order. It puts everything in there. It puts comic books, novels, TV shows, films, everything you want to see in a chronological list. It should be there. So those two sources are great to go to if you're looking at anything Star Wars chronological canon related material. So be sure to check those out, and I hope that if for those of you who are planning to come with us on this journey, that you just enjoy the ride. So thanks again, Diego, for popping by, and we'll see you all next time. May the Force be with you.